know when you're ready.
You're ready?
We're ready. Oh, okay. I guess that's what we meant when we said go.
Sure.
All right.
That's right.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:02, Monday, October 28, 2019. This is a workshop for the City Council of Woodland. Tonight's agenda is the presentation of the 2020 preliminary budget. Before we get started, I have a statement I'm going to read. I won't read it in full. I will read the introduction and the summary into the record this evening. So I will get started with that. Questions before we get started this evening? All right, sounds good. It is my pleasure to present the 2020 preliminary budget for the City of Woodland. The budget is balanced by reducing expenditures and expenditure requests. The total appropriations for all funds is $23,376,477 million, with no sales tax going into General Reserve Fund 301, and a transfer of $119,102 from the General Reserve Fund 301 to the General Fund 001. This budget has been developed with the pressures of increasing public safety expenses and loss of gambling tax revenues. As such, the Park Fund 101, the Street Fund 104, and the General Fund 001 have had expenditure appropriation requests decreased. Included in the budget are projected revenues and expenditures for the 2020 fiscal year. Revenues and expenditures have been estimated with a conservative philosophy. Revenue forecasts are based on current state and local economic trends, budgeting formulas provided by Municipal Research and Services Center, and, when appropriate, historical receipts. Total available fund balance and revenues for the city are $23,376,477. Total expenditures are also the same number. Expenditures have been appropriated to ensure the police department and the contract for fire services is funded. The City of Woodland budget is an outline representing levels of service provided to the citizenry. The budget was developed through many hours of analysis and discussion with executive staff in my office, the result of which is a budget that is balanced and prioritizes public safety while attempting to provide the same level of service throughout all city departments, with the exception of reductions in the park and the street funds. While developing this budget, it is evident that expenses continue to outpace revenues, including the loss of up to $275,000 in annual gambling tax revenues. The city will need to continue discussing and find new ways to provide important services for the community. City Council has been proactive in searching for sustainable funding for city services. For example, City Council enacted adjustments to the city fee resolution, increased the public utility tax in order to fund a position in the Community Development Department, and shore up fund balances and authorize ballot measures regarding street maintenance and police staffing and equipment. The elimination of impact fees as a topic of conversation must be redirected. We simply cannot have this conversation until revenues begin to outpace expenditures. I plan to discuss alternate sources of funding and providing services with City Council during its 2020 retreat. Alternative sources of revenue could include an adjustment to the public utility tax, reconsideration of funding the Transportation Benefit District, or an adjustment to business license fees along with impact fee adjustments. The cultivation of these resources could allow the city to leverage these funds with available grants to bring even greater resources to the community. I hope City Council will favorably consider the 2020 preliminary budget. With the ever-changing economic trends, we must continue to manage the taxpayers' dollars with the utmost care and concern. With this in mind, I have limited expenditures where necessary. I consider this budget practical and believe it continues to move the city forward in providing a quality service to the citizens of Woodland. Mr. Boyce.
Okay, so to get started, just give you a sense of what I hope to accomplish tonight. I was going to go through the budget summary in tab 1 of your packet. Next Monday, we hope to have department heads give their presentations so you can hear straight from them what they like about this budget, what they don't. And today I also want to give a sense of an overview of where we are and where we're going. To start with, tab 2, we have a sheet entitled 2020 Fund Balance. And I wanted to pay particular attention to these 4 funds: the General Fund, the Park Fund, the street fund, and the general reserve fund. The thing these funds have in common is that the general fund distributes property tax, sales tax revenues, and the general reserve fund also transfers money to the general fund and the street and park funds. So they're all interrelated. So when we consider where our reserves are, I always consider all of these funds together. And what this spreadsheet shows, you can see the beginning fund balance in the left-hand column. So for 2020, the beginning fund balance for the general fund was $312,000, the park fund $27,000, street fund $222,000, and the general reserve fund $935,000. The next column shows the revenues we anticipate to receive in 2020. So a total of $7.3 million. The expense shows the expenditures we anticipate in 2020, $7.2 million, with the ending fund balances being a cumulative total of $1,596,000. So from beginning fund balance to the ending fund balance, the difference is a $97,000 increase in fund balance, which is a good thing. If you skip 2 pages in your packet, I also wanted to highlight, we won't go into much of this tonight, but Tracy will talk more about it next week. This is a listing of grants we've applied for and received. In the first column, you see the name of the grant. The second column, you see what the city match was. And next column, you have what was awarded in grant funds. So basically, the match was, and this is for the in process awarded grants, the city match was $411,000. The grants received $4,132,000. So it's a good way to leverage our funds. We'll continue to do that as matching funds are available. But it's just good to see all in one place. So I wanted to point that out to you. Any questions right offhand?
Any suggested areas that we could fund any of these requests from?
Well,
So we have a matching here, but there's no dollars to match. So doesn't that become a problem at some point when we're awarded with?
well, so these matching funds in the top column, most of which are being covered by transportation impact fees. I think
The second set that hasn't been the resubmitted or waiting to hear back is what I'm referring to.
right, and so we do have to plan these out. There are still some funds available for the match, but you're right. When we're looking at all these, we need to plan out where that match is coming from and if we have it. So.
Excellent.
Right.
But to,
Tracy is very aggressive.
Yes.
She goes out and she solicits these grants, but we do need to keep our eye on the ball that these grants do cost money, and we need to make sure we have that match.
What's really frustrating is to see a staff member work so hard
Yes.
and then possibly get an award, bring it back to council, and then have us say, hey, nice job, but we can't pay for it.
So when we look at, just to help a little bit here, when we look at the 2018 Ped and Bike Safe Routes to School line item on the resubmit, when you go up to the grants awarded, we've been awarded $235,000 for that from the state already. So actually our match has been covered plus some on that one. The state's allowing us to use that $235,000 towards our matching goal there to receive that $1.1 million work. So really that one's going to be a wash, and it's going to be a freebie.
So there's 2 of them then, 2 separate ones?
And then the $82,000 was awarded this year as well for Horseshoe Lake ADA, and so it'd be a new bathroom, ADA capabilities down there. And we've received $82,000 towards that 378 already as well. So we're still aggressively looking to lessen the load and make sure that we don't have to turn those away. I just wanted to clear that up a little bit. Some of those look like big numbers, but we are receiving money towards it already, which is good.
Okay, with that, if we could flip back to section 1, or past the budget message. Get to this page here, budget overview and process. I won't go through all this, but it describes how the budget is put together. So basically, department directors get back to us with their wants and needs. Comes back to Mary and myself. We take the first run at it, go over it with the mayor, get back with department heads, and then present to council. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. If anyone has questions, I can go into that, but I'd rather get to the meat of it right now, if everyone's okay with that. All right, the next page, page 2. This is available resources, fund balance, and revenues for all funds. So as most of you know, in government accounting, you have different funds that collect different revenues for different purposes. And commingling of funds is severely restricted. The exceptions being those 4 funds I talked about earlier. The general fund can give money to any fund for general government purpose. The general reserve fund can also give funds for any general purpose. Anything else is pretty much restricted. So the first page shows all the different revenues. So the current revenue is revenue we anticipate to receive in 2020. So that excludes the beginning fund balance. So you can see the budget for 2019. We're anticipating receiving $17,682,000. In 2020, we're looking at $16,563,000 with a decrease of about $897,000. And when you look at these big overall numbers, there's a lot of things in play, especially when you start considering the public works projects and how much they are. Some of these are grant funds, and money comes in across this fiscal years. So the majority of that decrease is due to the timing of public works projects. The beginning fund balance, you can see for 2019, it's just over $8 million. For 2020, $6.8 million, with a decrease of $1.2 million. The last group of numbers is the revenue plus the fund balance combined. So you see in 2019 we have $25,700,000, 2020 $23,300,000, for a decrease of $2.1 million. The next page is a revenue summary across all funds. So here you can see all the funds listed. Current expense is another name for general fund, so that's the first one. You can see going down for the total, we have $23,376,477 in revenue anticipated. That also includes the fund balance. 2019, $25,739,000. The next page shows expenditures for all funds. And I'm breaking them down into salary and benefits, operations, capital, debt service. And then I give you a total. Then you have the ending fund balance and a a total of the ending fund balance plus all other expenditures. So in 2019, we had salaries and benefits of about 4.1 million, 4.15 million. For 2020, it's looking at 4.3 million, with an increase of about 188,000. Operations, we have 9,552,000 for 2019. 2020, 8,506,000. There's a decrease of about 1,046,000. Capital, 2019, 5.4 million, almost 5.5 million in 2019. 2020, close to 4.5 million, decrease of 1,005,000. Debt service, we had 718,000 in 2019. 2020 should be 533,000, decrease of 185. Total expenses, all funds, 19,924,000 in 19. 2020, 17,875,000. Ending fund balance, all funds in 2019, 5.8 million. Budget for 2020, 5.5 million, increase of 314,000. And the total all funds, including the ending fund balance, 25,700,000 for 2019. 2020, we're looking at 23 million for a decrease of 2,362,000. The next page is a printout of all funds.
Mr. Boyce, can I ask a question before you move on to the next page?
Please.
So this to me has always been a little kind of deceiving, maybe deceiving is not the right word, but it doesn't really take into consideration grant funds. So if I look at this, your expenses have decreased from 2019 to 2020 by $2.3 million.
Correct.
But how much of that was grants? So we add these one-time things in here, but both on the revenue and on the expense side, it makes it look as though we're doing this, and it would be, in my mind, it would be better to take a look at it without one-time big bumps in revenue that you've received grant money in and expenditures that have gone out. It just seems to me that it's not a real accurate portrayal of really what's going on. Because I see this as, wow, you've reduced expenses $2.3 million, and at the same time your revenues decreased by $2.1 million. Wow, that's $250,000 of...
Right, and that's why I was trying to preface it with, there are these large public works projects, most of them are grant funded, and you're absolutely right. It gives you a snapshot in time right now, but if that's something council wants, we could drill down into a little more detail on that.
I think the concern becomes if you realize the revenue in 2019, but you don't do the work until 2020, you see a big revenue jump in 2019, a big expense increase in 2020 on the timing of when grant money is received versus when it's spent. Or is that trued up at the end of the year?
No, our grant money is usually reimbursable, so we just spend it before we receive it.
You spend it before you receive it. Okay. I just don't think it gives an accurate portrayal of what's the revenue versus the expenditures look like, because you've got these one-time blips in there that can be fairly large, on some of these.
One way to get around that, we could exclude some of the funds that, are based on dedicated grant revenue. That would give a truer picture of perpetual revenue and expenditures that continue on with the city. So when you start looking at the 300s, the public safety fund, for example, was used to build the fire station. You got the sidewalk project, a lot of grant funds there. Washed-out exit 21, more grant funds. So you can see a lot of those in the 300 category of fund numbers could be excluded. You'd want to keep, when you get to the 400 water and sewer,
I think maybe just, I'm not suggesting for this year, and I don't.
I'm
sure
just trying to
nobody-
talk it out so I
Yeah,
understand.
nobody's gonna lose any sleep over not knowing it, but I think next year, if you just made two columns, one just showing here's with grants, and then one without, I think would show really kind of the history there of,
Right.
if you can do
But you'd want to
that
include the grant match, the city grant match, I assume.
as an expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'd have to.
you'd have to.
Okay, I understand that. Okay, so overall for 2020, we're looking at $23,376,477 in expenses, decrease of about 2.3 million. The next page, I start breaking down the general fund. I give you some overall general fund numbers, and then we'll break it down into the different departments. So overall, with the general fund, Fund 001, the current revenue, and that means revenue we anticipate to receive in 2020. In 2020, we're expecting just over $6 million, $6,004,000. 2019, it's $6,051,000. So a decrease of about 47,000, around 45. When we budget these revenues, we try to be conservative. I'd rather underestimate rather than overestimate revenue. So if you see some decreases, some of that is just myself and Mary wanting to be conservative in our approach and not count money that's questionable. Beginning fund balance for 2019, we had $443,000. 2020, $312,000. So a decrease of about 130. The combined revenue and beginning fund balance, you see for 2020, will be at about $6.3 million, down $177,937. Expenditures, salaries and benefits. 2019, we were at $2.5 million. 2020, we're $2.778 million, an increase of $246,500. Operations, 2019, we were at 3.4. We've reduced that down to 3.1 million, a decrease of 265,000. Capital expenses, 2019, we're at 203,000. Now we're down to $3,216, a decrease of 200,000. When we get into the departmental budget, we'll talk about some of the changes that make these things happen. Total expenses for the general fund, $5.9 million for 2020, $6.1 for 2019. Ending fund balance for the general fund in 2019 is $341,000. 2020, $382,000, an increase of $41,008. And the last column is the expense plus the ending fund balance. So 2020 of 6.3 million, 2019 6.4, almost 6.5, a decrease of 176,000. The next page goes into different departments that make up that, those overall numbers that we just went through. So legislative expenditures, this is to fund city council. We looked at historical receipts. We did decrease it by about $2,000. Salary and benefits remain the same. Operations from $17,000 to $15,000. Overall, $47,300 for 2020. 2019 it was $49,300, so an increase of $2,000. Judicial expenditures. These are funds used cover municipal court. This one I want to double check. We budgeted $64,100 in 2019. You see the year before actual in 2018 at 44. We have 49,220 for 2020. I just need to make, that's a $14,000 decrease. I just need to make sure that's realistic. The executive expenditures on the next page, page 8. Okay, so this is for the mayor and the city administrator. You can see salaries and benefits. I guess I should say exempt salaries. We looked at an increase of 2.25. I kept my salary schedule where it was, so there was no increase for mine. 2019, we're at $189,810. 2020, $190,847. Operations, $6,500. In 2019, $6,600. In 2020, increase of $100. And total overall, there's an increase of $1,137 in the executive expenditures budget for a total of $197,447. Finance, budgeting, accounting, auditing, administrative expenditures. This represents the Clerk-Treasurer's office. You can see an increase in salaries and benefits up to $627,000. That's a change of $23,230. And this represents the 2.25% COLA for exempts and the Teamsters contract that was renewed last year. Operations, for 2019, we're at 133. 2020, we're down to 117, a decrease of 16,000. Overall, increase from 19 to 20 is 7,154. Budget being 744,994 for 2020. Legal services and expenditures. This is to cover the city attorney, prosecuting attorney, and we also have labor attorneys that help us out with labor issues and negotiations. This is decreased by about $15,000. Last year we had 3 contracts open, police, both Teamster units. Next year we will be negotiating the police agreement again, because next year will be the last year. So we think we'll have some decreased expenditures. Civil Service Commission expenditures. This one's pretty small. For 2020, it's $900, $300 increase. General Facilities expenditures, $518. Basically, this covers maintenance for city buildings, including City Hall. There are salaries and benefits charged to this. Most of that are public works employees that help maintain the buildings. For 2020, we're at $98,984 change. It's an increase of $15,723. Operations are increased by $34,679. Expense total general facilities, 2020 we're at $613,000. It's a $50,000 increase. The next 2 items are for the Community Development Department. The first group you have planning, the second group building expenditures. Salaries and benefits look a little out of whack when you look at both of them. And in 2020, we need to do a budget amendment. In 2019, we need to do a budget amendment. We appropriated some of the expenses in the wrong spots, so that's why you see a decrease in wages of $36,000 in the planning for 2020, and you see an increase when you look down at building expenditures of 67,000. So that's why that looks a little out of whack. Operations for 2020 had 24,700. That's a decrease of $5,500. Total acute planning budget's 164,895. That's a decrease of 41,935. Okay, so the net is 25,207, so net increase. See the related building expenditures total of 265,920, and increase of 67,142. Again, together, total net's about 25,000. General government agencies and expenditures. So these are monies the general fund pays to outside agencies for various purposes. You see a list below the operations. In total for 2020, we're looking at $56,792. Here you can see a 3-year history of what we've given to these different organizations. So the Association of Washington Cities dues were $4,021. Emergency services, $17,865. Animal control, $13,377. The reason that's the same as 2019, and I'll double check this, I believe we over appropriated in 2019 a small amount, and it's the 2020 budget number. I'll double check that one. The diking assessment, $9,600. Air pollution control, $3,239. Downtown Woodland revitalization, we haven't given to that group since 2017, I believe. Cowlitz Economic Development Council, they were doubling their fees. We do have a representative from the CEDC that's going to be at our next city council meeting to talk about what services they provide. And
So we're going to get an additional $2,500 a year.
we'll see what they say,
Okay.
but they will be here. And they volunteered to do so. Let's see, the LCC AC, steady of $1,500.
That's the cap bus, right?
Right.
We didn't give them any money in 20%.
You budgeted for it, but they didn't invoice us.
Interesting.
I tried to remind them of the appropriation.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Can we get to the, I thought we gave the cemetery, Charles Adams.
That's in the police department.
Police
budget.
budget.
Is that still in there?
Yes.
Substance abuse is personnel tax and the direct bills by state statute.
And mosquito control, $590. And Woodland Action Center, they didn't get last year or this year. They do get money from document recording fees, and you'll see that in a few pages here. All right, so the next page is police expenditures. And you can see salaries and benefits, 2019 we're at 1.3 million, 2020 1.5 million, an increase of 173. The operations went from 376,000 in 2019 to 391 for a $14,000, almost $15,000 increase. Total expense for police, 1.7 million in 2019, 1.9 million in 2020, for an increase of 188,000. Right, so we have a tentative agreement with the police union right now, and we're including that in the 2020 numbers. So that represents what that agreement was. As you can see, the police department is a major piece of the general fund, representing about 30% of the overall expenditures. Next is code enforcement, which is also part of the,
If Prop 1 passes, how much will that offset or throughout this year?
well, if Proposition 1 passes, there would be additional funds to hire 2 officers and a sergeant, the equipment for those 3 positions, plus there was additional monies for other equipment. The idea being, when council approved it, that the gambling tax revenue was lost, which was a dedicated source for police equipment. So the intent was to try to backfill some of that with the levy limit. So if the proposition passes, it would not only fund the 3 positions and the equipment, it would also help out with other police equipment.
So then would have fire have to do a budget amendment then somewhere?
I'm sorry?
Fire have to do a budget amendment later on then? If this approves everything?
So if it passed, the chief has already put together 2 different expense scenarios. But again, we're trying to be conservative. We don't have any authorization from the voters yet, so we're putting this budget together with the current funds that are in place now.
So, given the fact that this is a preliminary budget, suppose it does pass, will there be a secondary budget that we will be reviewing prior to adoption?
So if the proposition was to pass, we would submit a secondary police expenditure budget and have to amend the overall totals and whatnot. So, yes, we would plan to give that to council for consideration at the first meeting after the election.
And that, if I'm not mistaken, that revenue will not even be seen until April the 1st.
Right, so it will come in with taxes, so you're probably looking at the first receipts in April. And it will take some time to hire. You know, as we've talked about before, trying to fill vacancies, it's a challenging process and there's a lot of competition. So we don't expect to be able to hire people day one. And as you say, it would be fiscally responsible to wait until the receipts come in before some of those expenditures go out.
Okay. I'm sure we'll, if it passes, I'm sure we'll have some good discussion on when we recognize the revenue versus when we plan on spending the money. So I'm sure there will be discussion on that.
Okay. Code enforcement, that's part of the Community Development Department. We have a part-time code enforcement person right now. Salaries and benefits, we have at $28,923. Operations at $1,250 for a total of $30,173. From fiscal year 19 to 20, that's a $2,200 increase. Fire expenditures. So this is where we cover the contract for fire services. This also represents about 20% of the general fund expenditures. So public safety together, you know, you're looking at half the general fund right there. So for 2020, we're looking at about 1.29 million. 2019 is 1.206 million. We're looking at an increase of about $84,071. We did make a request to, the contract calls for the amount to be based on $1.50 per thousand assessed value. However, we made a request to Clark County Fire and Rescue. They're charging the rest of their district right now $1.48. So they agreed to bring that request before their board, and we'll consider that. This represents what that $1.48 would be. So you're seeing an increase of $84,071.
So it's up $185,000 from 2018 to 2020.
Right.
And presumably another $85,000 next year.
As the assessed value increases, then their contribution goes up. Assessed value.
And there's nothing in the agreement that we have with them that limits those increases at all. So let's go to 2008, 2009. Presumably, if we had another one of those, would we see a substantial increase then?
Well, it's based on the assessed value, so if there was a drop in assessed value.
Well, my home valuation dropped by $100,000 a year during that time. My property taxes went down.
Right. So the assessment of the contract should also decrease.
They're also getting a portion of the construction. So, you have your assessed value of bank, that's why I'm adding your construction. So, I'm going to give a presentation later on this, but the new construction for 2020 is estimated at $20,903,000.
Yeah, the increase in the valuation is concerning because as that goes up, it seems to be rising faster than our revenue.
Right, so property tax is limited to a 1% increase. Mary's going to talk about property tax here in a minute. And new construction. So yeah, we have limits on how much property tax we can get. That's why our tax rate has been going down, is because as the assessments rise, we're limited to that 1% increase, and everyone's, the pie gets bigger and everyone's tax rate gets lower. So, but Mary will do a presentation on that, as soon as we go through this.
Where's that tab at, Ms. Rip?
Oh, you don't have that yet?
Okay,
You can
sorry, I'm
pass it
jumping
out
ahead, I'll wait.
to the,
I'll be patient.
take one.
Because is the increase in property tax, does it cover the fire portion? I bet it doesn't. I bet it doesn't come close.
There's still a share of their general fund revenue sources,
What
as well
about
as
$40,000? I'm guessing.
Let's,
sorry.
maybe now's a good time to take a break and go into the property tax
I'll get
item.
this thing to
So
build.
Mary, would you like to?
So, for 2020, at the 101% increase, we're estimated an increase of 90,000, a little over 90,000. Our assessed valuation is increasing 66,841,000. Our total collection would be the 1,571,000. Divide that by the amount collected, and you get the levy rate of $1.80.
So it does cover the increase then?
Huh?
It does cover the increase in the contract?
Except for we distribute it to other funds, or other departments too. So,
Right.
our general fund, what we're estimating is $1,008,000. Our street fund is receiving $300,000. The park fund is receiving $145,000. And then we have money that we've dedicated towards our police station debt of $117,000. So that $1,008,000 to the general fund after the distribution to the other funds is of the 1.2 that's the fire department, $1,290,000. So subtract those two, and that's what else we're funding the general fund money. So let's see. So $281,545 is supplemented from the other general fund revenues, and the $1,008,842 is coming from property tax.
Just, I guess my question is the sustainability of those increases year after year from the fire contract. And we knew it was gonna happen. I mean, we studied it, we looked at it, but I didn't think it was gonna go, I didn't think that it was gonna go up that fast.
Right, and we've talked about the prospect of annexation, and we're looking at that financial, see what that would mean, and we're doing the financial analysis on that, but in short, you can look at what the appropriation for the fire expenditures are, equate that to how much property tax we have. It's pretty much all of our property tax.
So the contract change, the fire department contract change was 84,000, but our increase in our collection with new construction is a little over 90,000.
Yeah.
Well, and to know, though, too, is that they've worked with us over the last few years by charging us the same rate as everyone
Yeah,
else.
decreasing it, not the full dollar.
Because it should have been almost $100,000 this year. It was like 98,000 and some change that should have
And so as we get back to the calculation on the back of your sheet, you'll see we went from, well, our high in 2013 at $2.44, and the city's tax rate, levy rate has continued to decline as assessed valuations have gone up. So we're down at 2019 at $1.04 per thousand, and in 2020 we're estimating $1.80 per thousand. So a decrease in the levy rate. So just on the city portion, your tax bill on a $250,000 house would decrease $9.32.
Be interesting to do another line chart to show us what our expenditures are without without grant money in there included. Because I guarantee you, that line is opposite of what our property tax collection is.
We would have grant money in the street fund and very little money in the general fund, and police grants for traffic safety. The rest of the money in the operating part of the general fund is our revenue sources pretty much from the street.
Wonderful.
And there's information floating around, because I know there's people at home listening, hello, that our property taxes increased almost 75% over the last how many years, which is clearly just not an accurate statement. So maybe at the county level, but not at the city level. So I just wanted to
No, it's
put that on
absolutely,
the record.
the misinformation that is out there is a lot of it being posted out there on social media, and it's very concerning that we have folks that are doing that, because some of them say they come to these meetings even. I'm not sure what meetings they're at, because I'm missing it too.
So just like sales tax and property tax, the city retains a very small portion of that compared to the amount the state gets.
Right.
And the county.
Right.
So that's why you see our tax rate for the city has gone down. The state's has gone up, but the city's portion. the
Yep.
levy rate is decreasing.
Thank you.
Okay, so, getting back to page 13, under fire expenditures, we have what we call non-expenditures. And these are pass-through fees we collect and send on to other agencies. So it's just kind of an in and out. Capital expenditures, we have a 2019 budget of $203,000. Budget for 2020 is $3,000, a decrease of $200,159. We did have some requests from the police department for a new vehicle, and the other request, chief, was $35,000.
No, that was for training.
No, it was a capital.
Computers.
I don't have a copy of the budget, so I can't follow the
So there was another equipment expenditure for 35.
I think it was for mobile platform computers or,
It might have been the MDT.
yeah.
Well, to any degree, in an attempt to balance the budget, we decreased those. I know those will be topics of discussion as we go on, but wanted to make everyone aware of that.
This is the prime example of why I like to see the line item, because I want to make sure that I have a full understanding of training, automobiles, things like that, because if we're not going to buy an automobile this year, then we're going to buy 3 next year. I mean, that's, all we're doing is kicking the inevitable can down the road when it comes to funding. I guess we wait and see. I guess the voters will give us direction in a few weeks.
And you can see below that,
Next week.
the items that were funded in 2019 and 2020. So you can see 1,500 for equipment in the Clerk-Treasurer's office, 1,700 for equipment in the City Hall. Last year, the police had 116,000 in vehicles and 86,000 in police equipment.
That was very easy. We have moved it over to your replacement side.
And 518 in the general fund. So when department directors speak to you next week, they'll go into more depth about what equipment they were asking for, what they got, what they didn't, what effect that will have on operations. Page 14, you see operating transfers. These are transfers out of the general fund to other funds. Down below the blocked numbers, you can see the street funds receiving $232,000 of, which equates to 20% of the sales tax received. 304 Equipment Acquisition Fund is receiving 0.5% of that sales tax at $8,119. The next item is charges for copiers. See, that's a $582 decrease for 2020. We have a new lease, and I think that's the reason for that. So that's the general fund. That's all the different departments in the general fund. Moving forward, we're outside the general fund and separate funds. The petty cash fund, fund number 2.
May I ask a question, Mr. Boyce? I don't mean to interrupt you, but just since we're talking about the general fund.
Yes.
If I'm reading the preliminary budget letter from the mayor correctly, the first paragraph, it says that there's no sales tax going into the General Reserve Fund 301, and a transfer of 119,102 from the General Reserve Fund to the general fund. So in essence, what we're saying is, the city council through policy has said, we want this percentage of retail sales tax to go into our general reserve fund, which is the rainy day fund. And the idea, my understanding, I think the last time we looked at this, was to ensure that we were always putting something into that 301 fund to keep that reserve fund increasing. So this is, what we're saying here is we're putting it in, but we can't put it into savings because we need that money to be able to fund current expenditure. Is that what I understand?
Right, and we can massage that number a little bit too. We have the 119,000, but we're increasing the fund balance in the general fund by $70,000, $439. So we could, zero out the fund balance in the general fund and move that, or reduce that $119,000 contribution from general reserve fund by that $70,439. So that's something we definitely could do.
I just want to make sure that, because that looks a little, for people who look at this and they don't understand how it works, it's basically we're putting money in to savings. It'd be the equivalent of me taking and putting $100 into savings and then realizing that I have to pay the light bill on Friday and going, oh, I need to do a withdrawal of that $100. So in, out, net gain, 0. So we can keep the lights on.
So, yeah, so right now, yeah, if we wanted to keep the fund balance and the general fund even, we could reduce that 119,000 by 70,000. So there still would be a contribution from 301, just not as much. So that is a definite option. Okay. So the petty cash fund, it's $850, no changes to it. Not much to talk about there. The next page is the advanced travel revolving fund. That sits at $2,000. No changes there. Okay, where things get interesting is in the park fund, 101. Now, last year we started talking about staffing in the park, and we've been, the last few years we've increased staffing there, and we've seen exceptional results of that. When you look at the parks, they're in great shape, they're doing a great job. But we warned last year that we probably weren't going to be able to continue that into 2020. And we have made a reduction. If you look down at expenditures, you see a reduction of $18,072. So there will be an impact on expenditures, or on staff, and it will be realized in what you see in the park. So in talking it out with the Public Works Director, we hire 2 seasonal part-time laborers every year. We're not going to hire them in the park next year. And, it sounds reasonable to have the part-time laborers. They work at a cheaper rate than the public works staff. However, they do require supervision. And if the supervision isn't there, you don't always realize the work you expect. So what she's proposing to do is to eliminate the part-time seasonal staff. There's still a reduction in the full-time public works FTE, but we'll continue on as such. The operations, we did see an increase of $23,856 year to year. The capital, a slight reduction by $3,500. Total expenses in the fund, $226,588. One of the requests that was not funded that we got was from the regarding the vegetation plan with the lake. There was a request to fund that vegetation plan. It's $30,000. It just didn't work into the numbers this year, so that decrease was made. They were also asking for a Kubota tractor. I'm not sure if it's a mower or a tractor. We'd have to look. That's about $20,000, and that was also increased. So the overall total park budget, including the ending fund balance, we're looking at $242,000. You can see the previous year it was $236,000. It's still more than the actual spent in 2018 at $224,000. So any questions on the park fund?
Yes, maybe I missed it in your explanation. I see your salary and benefits are being decreased because of the no summer park labor. But the operations budget.
There's also a decrease to the regular public works FTE that's in there also.
Okay. So, but I see your operation portion is increasing by 24,000. Maybe you said it and I just wasn't paying attention. Why is that increasing if you're,
Well, there are some, and I'll have Tracy go through it next week, but there are some expenditures in there, such as utilities and some other items that are going up. But the biggest change there is hot summer nights money. We plan to do that, all summer long next year. On the revenue side, you'll also see an $11,000 increase. That's associated with fees we plan to charge vendors for participating in hot summer nights. So there's an increase in expenditure, there's also an increase in revenue that partially, I think it's around $11,000 is the difference.
so your expenditures then covering your revenue, which is slated to be $8,000 less? And I realize that the reason it's gonna be $8,000 less is because we're not moving the money over, but does it
Yeah,
cover?
So the contribution from 301 has gone down, and that's part of the reason for that decrease.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the street fund. So there were decreases in the street fund also. If you look at the third line from the bottom, the expense total general fund, you can see we're at 774,000. Previous year, 971. The 2018 actual was 730,000. So the main thing that was reduced here was the project maintenance budget, and it's still higher than 2018 actuals, but it's a decrease. We did have an increase in fiscal year 2019. We got a lot more projects done. As you know, Tracy's very gung-ho, and she gets things done when the money's available. But again, we have a contribution coming in from Fund 301 to help sustain those 2020 numbers you see here of $95,000 from Fund 301. So again, we're not seeing a huge increase in gas tax, other revenues dedicated to this. So general fund's providing tax revenue to the street fund also. It's just our expenditures are going up quicker than those revenue sources. So we've been supplementing with Fund 301. However, that's hard to continue with the loss of the gambling tax money. At its peak, it was about $275,000. The last couple of years, it's, as the casino was slowing down, it slowed down to $35,000 last year, and I think about $14,000 this current year. So in 2020, it will be totally gone. So again, decreases here, but I can say it's more in line with the 2018 expenditures that we had then. But it will have an effect on what maintenance we can do. And the chip sealing we did last year was a great benefit, and we'll be looking at maintenance reductions going into 2020. Any questions on the street fund? Next fund is the document recording fee fund, and this is where the contribution to the Woodland Action Center comes in. So for 2020, we're anticipating new revenue of $6,400. There's a fund balance of $627, total of $7,027, a $600 increase. And basically, that $7,000 we have budgeted under operations would go to the Woodland Action Center for their purposes. Fund 107, hotel motel tax. So we're anticipating new revenues of $66,892. We have a beginning fund balance of $63,637 for a total of $130,529. The hotel motel tax committee met, and down below you see their recommendations. Chamber of Commerce to receive $55,000 to run the visitor center, $6,000 to Lilac Gardens, Y Racing at $7,500. That's the group that did the triathlon. And PDC 2,500. What's PDC? Planners Day. Just not used to that. PDC.
What's up with the $5?
Planners Day.
That's what it came out to.
Oh, okay.
Without asking for any more than
What's needed? All right. That's the number.
That's the number.
All right.
So that's what we're looking at there. Ending fund balance should be noted. We plan to carry over about $59,000 in the following year.
Mr. Boyce,
Yes.
can you help me understand the history here on the requests for these expenditures? Chamber of Commerce appears in memory to have now, seems higher than last year. It seems to be going higher every year.
They have been increasing. At one time, they were getting, I think, big idea money. Is that right, James? And when that money went away, they came in with an increased request to City Council to operate the visitor center. And I can't remember well, I guess right here. I think it is a slight increase from the previous year. I want to say it was $50,000 last year. We can get council history on that, so you
Well,
can see.
I think the concern is too, is that even if there are members of council who disagree and want to change this, the way to do that is very cumbersome in the process to do that. It requires that board to meet again and go through another process. I just, is it possible to get a copy of the Chamber of Commerce's budget as well?
Yeah, I will distribute that to the council, all the requests.
Okay. Better, it just seems to me too that we're continuing to throw money into that visitor center that is aging. And I'm wondering what the long-term plan is for the chamber in conjunction with the city to start putting money aside to get that facility upgraded at some point. It seems to me that we're just keeping the doors open every year, but I would really like to understand what the Chamber of Commerce's long-term vision is for the visitor center and what that looks like. Because I just keep increasing. I feel like I keep increasing the hotel motel tax every year. The amount that I'm giving on behalf of the taxpayer seems to be going up every year.
Can I get on my soapbox for 1 second? So again, the importance of changing legislation to receive our 2% back from the county that's being siphoned off, which is roughly $70,000. So, which would help with making that number a little bit easier as well. So without the 2% coming back into the city, I've already approached current leadership with the chamber, and where that conversation has gone, I'm not sure, but asking that we start weaning ourselves off of that a little bit and start reducing somehow. So I don't believe that it fell on deaf ears. It was a very productive conversation that I had with the current president. So I've asked that we start dialing that back a little bit. What comes of that, I don't know, but I did make the ask, and she was receptive to that. It was a positive conversation.
Just
so.
not for this year.
Well, again, you talk about cumbersome going back and trying
So
to.
we have to advertise. and
Yeah.
we have to meet.
So that's why
And
I've started the conversation
I want to say
already.
there's a 45-day notice requirement.
Yes. We went through this last year, if we remember. So, but I've already started the conversation, so we don't have to go down that road, that they understand that this is hard when we look at the distribution of funding to outside agencies coming in to help get heads in beds, that's a huge chunk of money that we could be giving to outside organizations to help. So, I mean, and I understand that they have expenses as well, but I've already started that conversation.
Well,
with them.
and there's no doubt the visitor center certainly does bring, a lot of people stop in there, their visitor
Yeah.
counts are up every year. I mean, it's a good thing. I'm not suggesting that, the funding is bad, but, that additional $70,000 a year that you talk about is enough to pay in, 4 years, it would pay off a very nice building. I don't know if you've all been up to Kelso. Is it Kelso?
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock.
Getting my Kelso Castle Rock, but it's beautiful. And we have a single wide trailer from 1912.
12.
Are you being serious?
Parked out at the park and ride. I mean, it doesn't say, hey, stop in and see me. The sign is nicer than the visitor center. I mean,
But it's movable and.
it is movable. That's
It
the
will
beautiful
have
thing about a
lettering.
trailer. All I'm saying is the long-term vision, well, I don't know what it is, and I think we should understand that better. Anyways,
Well, we could invite the chamber director of the council and talk about that during the workshop meeting.
yeah. And I know it's a work in progress, so I get it.
And again, I know that they legitimately, if you look at our expenses are increasing.
That's right.
Their expenses are increasing as well, so, but I have started the conversation of how can we work together to start bringing that the other direction, so.
And I'm assuming that the revenue is covering this expense? It seems like the revenue's higher, or the expenditures are higher than
Yeah, so
the
there was a
revenue.
decrease in fund balance of $3,863.
So not only that,
The lodging tax advisory board voted to fund the difference out of.
and the lodging tax advisory committee can tell the legislative body that we're taking money out of the ending fund balance,
Sending this to you for your approval.
and we can't say no without them going back and meeting again and jumping through all the hoops for them to say, nah, we want you to spend the money anyway.
That's the correct process.
I can't believe that we've come to that. Just, well, that's what it is.
So moving on, LTGO 2012 fund, so this is general obligation bonds and is used to purchase the land for the police station and construct a portion of the police station and purchase a fire truck. So what we're looking at here is revenue of $166,000, beginning fund balance of $360,000 for a total of $526,000, and debt service expense $177,863, ending fund balance at $348,000. And the way these next few funds that provide the general obligation bonds are funded are from transfers from the General Reserve Fund 301. So that's where that money comes from. The second page, so that was the 2012 bond. There was a 2013 bond, and this was to finish the construction of the police station. You can see the current revenue anticipated at $133,600, beginning fund balance $827, total of $134,000. So the debt service and the expenditures is $131,465. The general obligation bond for 2017 on the next page, that was used to construct the fire station. We have a budget of current revenue of $38,400, beginning fund balance of $5,500, for a total of $43,980. The Debt service expense is $43,254 with an ending fund balance of $726. Next page is the General Reserve Fund 301. On the revenue side of things, you can see the anticipated revenue for 2020 at $38,400. I broke down the revenue differently in this fund so you can understand all the parts that are coming in. We have real estate excise tax revenue, that's the REIT funds. We anticipate those to come in about $265,000. Loan repayments and interest, $12,000. Sales tax revenue, $0. That would have come from the general fund. Gambling tax, $0. You can see the past 2 years it was dwindling down, $37,000, $18,000. The year before that, I think it was $270, right in there. Let's see, so 2017 it was $159,000, 2016 it was $247,000, 2015 it was $278,000. So that's a revenue source being missed. So we have a reduction in beginning fund balance, $48,105. You can see the second page is also the expenditures for 301. See operations, which is basically transfers, $296,973. The ending fund balance decreased to $156. Total expense with the fund balance $1.213.
Mr. Boyce, can we stop there and take a break? Is that good? Is that a good stopping point?
It is.
Okay. It's 8:19. We'll take a 6-minute break. Don't give you too much time. I brought cupcakes.
Oh, what a guy.
Dear Lord. And we're back in session. And are we rolling yet, Miss? Yes, Mrs. Ripp, we're rolling. Mr. Chapman, we're rolling. All right, Mr. Boyce.
All right, we're at page 26, Equipment Acquisition Fund 304. And basically, sales tax is forwarded to this fund to save for future equipment. I think the last time we used it, to purchase the community development Ford Escape. So this year we have $8,369 coming in, a beginning fund balance of $27,000 for a total of $35,711. And this year we don't have any expenditures appropriated, so that fund balance will just carry over to $35,711. The next fund is a fund that was closed, but we still have to show it for the past history in the budget document. This was the Public Safety Fund 319 that was used to construct the fire station. So you can see in 2018 there were some expenses there. 2019 you can see where the fund was just closed out. So not much to speak to there. Sidewalk project, page 28. Sidewalk project number 320. Again, this is one of those grant-funded projects. I'll let Tracy go into the details of the project. Basically, we have $101,483 in fund balance and current revenue. We anticipate expenditures in the ending fund balance of about $101,483. So total expenditures this year are going to be about $65,000. The next fund, WashDOT Exit 21 Feasibility Fund, through 24. Again, these are grant dollars. So when you see the revenues, these are reimbursements from the grant funds. So we're anticipating $224,000 in 2020. There's a beginning fund balance of $10,180 for a total of $235,000. Expenditures, we're looking at $235,000 in expenditures to zero out the fund balance. So again, that's for the feasibility study at exit 21. The next fund on page 30 is another closed fund. Not actually sure what this one was for. You can see some 2018 numbers where it was closed out. Fund 326, the South Woodland Safe Routes to School Fund, again for sidewalks. You can see anticipated revenue, $150, beginning fund balance $140,130, for a total of $142,880. We're anticipating expenditures of $142,880. Next fund, the COG, STP Exit 21 Fund. So again, this is a different pot of money going towards Exit 21. I believe this was the money from the Scott Avenue bypass grant that we received. So this money is being diverted to studying Exit 21 also and helping with, I think some portion of the money is being helped, is also helping with design. So we're looking at up to $900,000 in expenditures in 2020. Fund 328, the West Scott Full Depth Reclamation Fund. Tracy tries to name these so they're understandable when you read the title. So in 2020, we're looking at $877,500 in revenue. There was no beginning fund balance. The expenditures, we're anticipating $751,800 in expenditures with an ending fund balance of $125,700. The next fund is impact fees to the fire fund. Current revenue of $80,000. Beginning fund balance is $317,825 for a total of $397,825. Not anticipating any expenditures for 2020 at this point. Impact fees, park fund, 352. We're anticipating $27,900 in new revenue. There's a beginning fund balance of $68,726 for a total of $96,626. No expenditures appropriated at this time. Again, these monies can be used for park improvements due to population growth and capacity needs.
Mr. Boyce, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As I was looking, Mrs. Ripp and I had a conversation last week, and what is the 70,000? Where's the? I'm sorry, I might be looking at the wrong spot here. Where's our ending balance on this?
$96,626.
Okay, so what are we spending money? What did Tracy budget something in there for?
We're saving that at this point. If that grant for the splash park and the ADA
Gotcha.
accessibility comes in,
Okay.
we could amend the budget to help.
Did you just say that? Okay, I'm just making sure that I didn't. Okay, I was tracking. Okay, so we have $96,000 left in that account.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item, impact fees, transportation fund, so 353. Again, impact fees come in when new development occurs. They have to pay an impact fee to help mitigate some of the effects on the community. We're anticipating new revenue of $140,000, beginning fund balance of $55,519 for a total of $195,519. We have $158,925 in expenditures appropriated, leaving an ending fund balance of $36,594. And I believe that money is being used for grant matches that we talked about before. All right, the next is another major fund, the Waterfront. On this first page, we just have revenues. Again, I broke them down a little bit more than other funds, so you can see the service charges in 2020 being $2,012,000. Other revenue the fund brings in equaling about $48,000 for a total of a typo here. Oh, I'm sorry, no I don't. So that's the beginning fund balance of 305, the total being 2.3 million, 2,365,329. The next page shows the expenditures for the water fund. You can see salary and benefits of $568,000. Operations, 1.1 million, almost 1.2, a decrease of $591,000 from 2019. Capital of $47,695, a decrease of $8,333. There's debt service in this fund, totaling $54,990. Total expenses are equal to $1,791,147. Ending fund balance is anticipated at $574,182. Expenses plus the ending fund balance equate to $2,365,000. Next page is the revenue for the sewer fund, Fund 402. We have service charges of $2,552,988. Other revenue of $44,128. Beginning fund balance of $1,560,802. The total revenue and fund balance equaling $4,157,000. The next page shows the expenditures. We have salary and benefits at $599,000. Operations at $1,301,000. Capital, $1,184,000. Debt service, $125,500 for a total of $3,211 in expenditures. Fund balance, ending fund balance, we anticipate $946,842. The expenditures plus the fund balance equate to $4,157,000. Garbage collection fund, 403. Service charges, we show $958,692. Other revenue of $28,133. Beginning fund balance of $300 for a total of $987,125. Expenditures for operations, which is really payment to waste management, $987,125. Next one, 413, Booster Pump Water Treatment Plant Improvements Fund. We show current revenue of $122,328. We had a beginning fund balance of $1,159,000 for a total of $1,281,000. Expenditures, operations, we have $434,198. Capital expenses of $624,378 for a total, including the ending fund balance of $1,281,000. The water treatment Appliance Electrical HVAC Valve Fund. We're looking at revenue of $534,198. There's zero beginning fund balance. Capital expenditures, $534,198. Next is the Water Utility Reserve Fund, 421. Anticipate revenues at $84,000, beginning fund balance $290,140 for a total of $374,140. Expenditures, anticipate expenditures at $133,025, ending fund balance $241,115. Next page, we have the Sewer Utility Reserve Fund at 422. Anticipate new revenue of $82,245. Beginning fund balance of $615,169 for a total of $697,414. Expenditures anticipated for 2020, we have $33,025. With the ending fund balance of $664,389. Next page is Utility Deposits Fund. Anticipate revenue of $37,200. There's a beginning fund balance of $141,000 for a total of anticipated for 2020 with an ending fund balance of $108,000. All right, two funds left, or I guess one fund left. The impact fees for school fund 650. We're anticipating revenue of $147,500. Again, this is forwarded on to schools, so you don't see much of a fund balance here. The expenditures, we're going to send over $144,000 to the schools with an ending fund balance of $3,500. So that's
Can we get that on the
a
record?
rundown
Can you get that on the record?
where we are.
No, I'll
No,
say it.
no, go ahead.
This is a way to subsidize the county, I think, on the school impact fees. I just have to get that there. Thank you.
Correct.
So,
You would be correct.
at the next meeting, we anticipate to have department directors talk about what they asked for and what they were given and what impact that has on their operations. So,
Can I ask a question on tab 2, last sheet that you have in there on the revenue tax history?
on the tax history,
Yeah. On the cellular phone tax, you're estimating $73,100
For 2019.
for 2019, and you're estimating $63,910, which is a $10,000 difference. Any reason why that would be going down?
cellular telephone tax.
Oh, for 2019 actual, because our actuals, if you look at it historically, what we have remaining, the 73,000 is probably,
Yeah, so we've looked
No,
at
the
September
two-
to date and then annualized.
so the 2019 actual, we've estimated the last 3 months. And then the 2019 estimate of 73,000, we probably are not getting that 73,000.
So, the logical question, I think, why would you estimate 2019 to be at 73.1 then?
It says 63,910.
No, 2019 estimated is 73.1.
That was the original estimate from January.
Okay,
And now we're saying.
so that was your 2019 budget, not estimate.
Estimated budget. Right, estimated budget.
Okay. but it's what we,
The 2019 actual column now has through September, and then also we estimated the last 3 months based on history from prior years.
and you've not figured in any, my assumption is you have not figured in any B Young tax revenue. You've also not accounted for the fact that we have a new, what appears to be a truck dealership for large tired trucks that you need a ladder to get into.
The sales tax.
Over there off of where old, the Chevrolet dealership used to
So
be.
you're right, we did not take those into account.
And that's okay,
Because we don't know,
understand.
you know, what kind of sales they're going to have and what impact that would be.
We have several new
So
businesses that we
I
don't
think the
have
plan
in the
is
area.
to look at the new businesses that we think we have going on, do some conservative estimates, and then come back to make the budget after we
Sure.
see how they're operating.
But to be clear then, this 2019 estimate should be 2019 budget. The 2019 actual amount, is that what you've determined to be where you're at today,
So it's the
extrapolated out to be
Right.
where
So
you'd be
it's
at for the
September
entire year?
actual plus estimate for the last
Got it,
3 months.
okay.
But estimate, yeah, it's the budget.
And your natural gas tax is gonna go up that much? Seems to me.
They're predicting a pretty hefty increase to the budget. Natural gas tax.
Natural gas getting hit hard.
I want to say the number I went on to their website was 2 increments, I think, from like 17%.
Okay,
Yeah,
it makes sense, it makes sense now. I
17%.
didn't
Wow.
understand what that estimate meant. I get it now, thank you.
Well, that's what I was planning to talk about tonight. If anyone has any
Questions for Mr. Boyce?
comments? I guess I should also mention that one other appropriation request that was asked for that wasn't funded, the chief asked for an additional $20,000 in training that was not included in this budget. There is training money in the budget for the police to cover basic training that they need that's comparable
Mandatory.
to what's in the 2019 budget. But the additional training wasn't,
So the council, or the budget that you have that we've been provided accounts for mandatory training only, but what appears to be no extra training, is that?
correct.
And we should have a better understanding of where we're gonna fall on that come election day, right?
And also the, under some of the IT funding, the clerk's office asked for $33,000 to update the website. They did not include that $33,000 for the website. Now, there are some concerns with that, as there are ADA requirements that our current website does not meet, but,
Florida is
that
being
appropriation's not in.
sued. The state of Florida is being sued left and right, municipalities down there, due to the fact that municipalities aren't up to code with ADA requirements
ADA?
on their website. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So spend $33,000 now to fix it. We're waiting until we get sued and settle lawsuits that they'll come to us and say, hey, we'll settle this with you for 10 grand so we can pay it out incrementally over the same amount of time, like we do.
Yes,
Records requests.
it will slowly make its way to Washington, yes,
Wonderful. It sounds exciting.
as the trend will show.
And I have some of the website folks, sure, with finance committee, so we can look at bare bones,
Okay. So do we have an understanding of what it would require for us to be ADA compliant? I didn't realize.
Oh.
What do you do?
There's
things that doesn't speak and, is it font size and,
Default colors and, so when, I think, after refresh on memory, but it's cover or something, and you have the
read it to you? Okay.
Accessibility.
I've often wondered why they have Braille on the ATM machine when I drive up to the ATM machines. It's very concerning.
No, because that blind person's driving up to the ATM machine.
Just saying. It's always something that's it's very concerning to me as a citizen.
I feel very uncomfortable with this conversation right now.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? 8:50.